Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Finland once again for the first time in what feels like a good little while. It's been a couple of weeks since my last Finnish review published, and it's been even longer than that since I actually filmed a Finnish beer review for you. So the main reason for the interruption of the flow was that I had a memory card which unfortunately corrupted, and on that memory card I lost two lovely sour beer reviews that I did from Finland. I do have a couple of ideas of how to recover these. I've been a bit busy with work and things like that over the little while, so I haven't been able to invest too much time in that, but you know, it just kind of interrupted the flow of the Finnish reviews, unfortunately. But the other thing that is pending at the moment is the fact that Riku, my Finnish beer mule, is starting to plan the second beer box for October or November, so we do still have quite a few Finnish beers that we're going to get through before that actually. So for this video we are going to move on to the higher alcohol beers that Riku sent me. So once again, a huge thank you to Riku for organising the Finnish beer box. Basically what happened, I sent him a little bit of money, he organised all of these Finnish beers. Finnish beers, as I've told you before, are very difficult to get unless you're actually in the country. So yeah, definitely cool to be able to review these, and you will be seeing a kind of steady flow of Finnish reviews over the next months and years. I think this is going to be maybe we're probably going to do 2, maybe even 3 boxes a year, just depending on what interesting things Riku can get a hold of. So yeah, really looking forward to seeing this continue. But for this review, to kind of reboot the Finnish mini-series, if you like, we're going to go back to Riku's hometown. So we're going to go to Oulu, which is kind of on the northwest coast, if you like, of Finland, and we're having a look at my third beer from Sonnisari Panimo. So this one is the Orange Nelson Sauvin. It comes in at 10.2% ABV, and this one is a barley wine with orange peel added to it. So this beer is one of the ones that I picked out from the Alko range. Riku said to me, have a look through Alko, have a look through the website, see what you're interested in, and I'll see if I can order it for you. And this is one that just kind of piqued my interest for a couple of reasons. So I'm a huge fan of orangey leaning beers, like orangey leaning IPAs and stuff like this. You know, Amarillo, Mosaic, you know, these are some of my favourite hops there. So this is one that I thought would be really interesting, an orangey leaning barley wine. But the other thing is that it's got Nelson Sauvin in it, and that's one of my favourite kind of South Pacific hops, along with Galaxy and Enigma. So I thought, you don't see too many barley wines with Nelson Sauvin in it, and probably they're only common, I would guess, in New Zealand, maybe a little bit in Australia as well. So this beer just piqued my interest for 2 reasons. I love the kind of green grapey kind of qualities that you get from Nelson Sauvin, and I'm really curious to see how that translates into a barley wine as well, because I don't remember reviewing a barley wine when I was down in New Zealand back in 2015. I definitely need to get back there and you know, spend a little bit of time and review some of the kind of newer beers from down there as well. But yeah, I think this one should be a really quirky beer. I've been impressed with the last ones that I've had from Sonnisari already. That was the Randy West Coast IPA, and there's also, I believe it was called the Sinti, which was a kind of imperial Schwarzbier, if you like, or an imperial Czech Tmavé. It was something like that. It was really nice actually, a black lager essentially, but a little bit stronger in alcohol, 7.5% or something if I remember rightly. But yeah, this one should hopefully be another very nice beer from Sonnisari, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So let's see how we get on. As always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Sonnisari before. No doubt you will see some more added to that list in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Finnish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, but regularly, as I say, thanks to Riku. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Sonnisari Panimo then, on to my brewery notes. So Sonnisari, as I've told you before, are based in Oulu, in the kind of northwest corner of Finland, if you like. Well, not the northwest corner, the northwest coastal corner, I guess you could say. And the company was founded back in 2014 and then sold their first beers in May of 2015. And they were apparently the first brewery in Oulu for 10 years, since the Oulun brewery in the city centre closed down. So the company was founded by Timo Kaniainen, Timo Tinsima and also Harry Varela, and it's Timo K that is the head brewer and the CEO of the company. So initially they started running the brewery on the weekends just as a kind of side project while they were working their day jobs, and they were producing just around 1,500 litres of beer per month. After the first year though, they expanded quite rapidly after they opened up a share issue, and this allowed them to quadruple their capacity to 14,000 litres of beer per month and invest in new bottling equipment as well. At this point Timo began to work in the brewery full time. Kalle joined him part time as part of the brewing team, and they now also have Ole working in there as well. But the name of this brewery is quite interesting. So it literally translates into English as Bull Island, and apparently this could have been very different. Sonisaari is actually a very small island next to central Oulu, and it's well known. It was supposed to have been intended to house a plague hospital during the 19th century, but I don't know if this ever came to fruition actually. Riku would be the man to ask about that. But in the early days, the brewery became very close to being founded in Toppila, and they were determined that the name would be something kind of local. But they pulled out of this proposed site in Toppila, and they still had the opportunity to change the name of the brewery on the paperwork. So the name Sonnisari had been floated previously, and Timo T had drawn a bull logo, and they felt that this really matched the idea that they had of a heavily hopped IPA being their debut beer, and you know, it just kind of stuck. Everything just sort of fit together, and there you had Sonnisari Panimo, the Sonnisari, the Bull Island brewery. So the brewery itself can be found in the south of the city, and as of July 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 150 different kinds of beer. So they have been fairly prolific over the last couple of years. You know, that's a beer every 3 weeks or something like that. It works out. You know, it works out, as I say, the last 3 years, the last 6 years I should say. So that's, you know, 300 weeks and... yeah, 300 weeks and then 150 beers. That's basically a new type of beer every 2 weeks. That's pretty damn impressive actually. So yeah, that's pretty damn good. But yeah, as I say, I've had some really nice beers from these guys so far. You know, it's cool to see. There seems to be a couple of breweries up there in Oulu just now. From what Riku tells me, there's about 5 in the local area. So I think in the next Riku box he will send me a couple of the newer ones, because I think the 2 or 3 of the other ones are very, very young. But yeah, really cool to have such a quirky brewery, if you like, close to you. So yeah, definitely we'll be reviewing more of these beers over the next little while. Riku did give me another 2 beers from Sonnisari. One of them was from his personal cellar. I think that was the Imperial Stout, and we do have another Barleywine from these guys as well to look at, a more regular Barleywine, I guess you could say. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Sonnisari for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can of course check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. Very, very curious to see what this beer has in store for us. So yeah, this one should hopefully be really nice. So as you can see, the artwork on this one is a little bit different, a little bit plainer, I guess you could say, compared to the other ones that we've had from Sonnisari before. There you can see the Sonnisari Bull, which is quite nice there. This one just has a plain black bottle cap, which is quite nice. And yeah, 10.2% barley wine, like I said, Nelson Sauvin hopped, and it's got a little bit of orange peel in it, or apelsinskal as we would say in Swedish. I'm guessing that it's what is it, apelsinen quarry. I guess you would say kuori. Finnish is a really beautiful language to listen to. I love how Finnish sounds actually, and when you hear people reading stories and things like that, you know, I quite like listening to the Finnish interviews and watching the subtitles of some of these metal bands that I like. It's a beautiful language to listen to, but I do think that when it was created, they were just having a laugh to see how many vowels they can fit in a word. I really do think that was something that was playing on their mind. But yeah, let's get this guy out then, and we will get on with the tasting. But yeah, beautiful language, Finnish, one of the Uric languages, along with Estonian. I think they can understand about 30% of what each other say, from what my friend Einar tells me, my friend Einar in Estonia. And there's also Hungarian for some reason, is a Uric language as well, but you know, Hungary is a good bit away. But the Uric languages, you know, when we say Uric languages, they originated in the kind of Ural area. So yeah, the mountains that separate Europe from Asia. But yeah, this one I think should be quite interesting. And you can tell when you pour this, it's a big boozy monster. Just look at that. Just basically hop oil or something. Hop and malt oil. But yeah, if we shine the light through this beer, it is actually a very kind of murky... I'd say it's a kind of coppery colour. Yeah, it's a sort of murky coppery colour, this one. It is actually pretty damn hazy. But yeah, if we shine the light through it, it's copper. Yeah, it's a sort of coppery colour, this one. You can see there's a little kind of ring of little kind of foamy layer, sort of an ivory creamy coloured foamy layer around the edge of this one. The head is pretty much non-existent. You can see one or two little carbonation bubbles coming up towards the side of the glass there. But yeah, very, very small carbonation, just kind of, they seem to sort of be coagulating around the edge of the glass there. Use my old chemistry words, coagulating. Ugh. Yeah, my English is getting better again, I guess we could say. But yeah, one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, quite a few little bubbles kind of coagulating around the edge of the head there. You can see one or two little bits of sediment floating around in this one. But yeah, it looks pretty nice. It says here, this is batch number 194. And it says it's best before the 14th of May 2021. I don't know, maybe the bottle does, in fairness, the bottle does look as if it's been sitting a little bit. Just, you know, the condition of the label, it's not bad of course, but there's a few wee spots and things on it. So maybe this one has been sitting in the warehouse for a little while. So with a barley wine, you always want it to have at least, you know, kind of 6 months of age to sort of mellow out and things like that. So I don't know how old exactly this one would be. You know, I don't know if this was a one-off batch or exactly what it was. I couldn't figure that out from Untappd. But yeah, maybe it's about, if it's going off in May 2021, I would reckon, you know, barley wines can last forever in the bottle. Maybe this beer it's July 2020, so it's about 10 months away from its sell-by date. Maybe they would have put this in the bottle for like 3 years, something like that. So maybe it's from like 2018 or something. I'm really not sure, but you know, we can take a guess when we taste it. But yeah, nice kind of coppery coloured beer. This one, virtually no head, and yeah, let's take a look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this one. It does actually smell pretty damn nice. Yeah, so with this beer then, you can see it smells just like a big kind of boozy beast. There's a hell of a lot of kind of caramel to this one. It does come across as a bit bready. The other thing we'll need to talk about with this beer, of course, is whether it's an English or an American barley wine. The English ones, of course, a bit more roasty and toasty and kind of bready, if you like, whereas the American ones are, you know, more kind of sweeter. The other difference would be that the English fruits are a bit more kind of phenolic and medicinal, whereas the American ones, again, quite juicy and a bit sweeter. But yeah, lovely kind of... and there's a lovely sort of kind of brown bready base to this one, but it's almost mixed in with a really kind of oily caramel. There's a bit of a toasty quality to the brown sugars as well, I have to say. So lovely big kind of toasty notes to it, but not overly toasty, just very slightly toasted, if you like. So big oily, kind of sweet caramelly note out of this one. A bit of McVitie's Digestive in there, bit of a brown bready quality, like I said. But it's not in the sense, it's not kind of grainy or anything like that. It's definitely, it smells more like a kind of American or a German malt base in this beer. I don't know if they use Finnish malt actually. I would guess that there are some Finnish malteries, but I think a lot of breweries in Europe tend to use you know, either German or Belgian malt, something like that. Some English malt as well, Maris Otter, etc. But yeah, the aroma of the malt base here is really very nice. As I say, it's big, you know, it's a big oily brown sugary thing rather than anything else. You've got that kind of biscuity note to it. You've got a big kind of sweet caramel in there, big oily kind of thing. But you've also you know, you've got a really nice kind of bready quality in there as well, a bit of a kind of brown bready, bread crusty type thing too. On the hoppy side of things, you can still pick out a little bit of a, you can pick out a little touch of earthiness to this one, but you've got a nice wee bit of a kind of floral and grassy note to it. I'm surprised you can still detect that, to be honest. But Nelson Sauvin can be up to like 16% alpha acid, so it is a big, you know, it's a big pungent bugger when it gets going, which is surprising when you consider how soft the kind of grapey flavours are, and the aromas too. But yeah, the fruity notes and stuff that come out of this one then, in some ways it actually does smell a little bit medicinal, if you like. You do get that orange peel quality out of it, and it comes across as quite oily. If you think about the way orange aroma comes out of like a chocolate orange or I don't know how good a reference that is for Finnish people. I don't think you get Terry's chocolate orange in Finland. But if you think about an orange infused chocolate, the way that the orange comes out in this one is really similar to that. But yeah, there's a few other kind of fruity notes in there. There is a more kind of almost Amarillo-like orangey oily quality coming out of it. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a wee bit of Amarillo added in here to kind of back up the orange. Because there's something about the aroma here that is making me think Amarillo, just the level of oily orange in there. But yeah, you do. The thing that's interesting about this is you do get a kind of grapey quality to it, the Nelson Sauvin one, but it almost comes across as being a little bit more like a kind of dried Sultana type quality, which is interesting. You know, the Nelson Sauvin was always a very kind of bright, white, greeny colour, kind of grape note to it, but of course it's in this beer it really comes out a little bit more jammy and Sultana like. So the aroma of this one, again, it's very, very quirky, but basically big oily sweet caramel, some little remnants of hoppy qualities in there, and a nice kind of juicy and oily fruity quality to it. So take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of that before you get stuck in. This is one of the quirkier aromas I've come across in the barley wine style, if you like. I'm curious to see, as I say, whether it's an English or an American barley wine. But let's have a taste of it and see how we get on. This one is the Orange Nelson Sauvin, a 10.2% barley wine with orange peel added to the brew from Sonnisaari Panimo in Oulu in the northwest of Finland. Let's get stuck into this one. Slange, skål. Yeah. That's pretty nice. It's definitely a big sort of oily malty thing. This definitely a big oily malty thing. It's not the hoppiest of barley wines you're going to come across. Actually, it's definitely leaning towards the kind of malty end of the spectrum. Yeah. It's interesting that I think this one it's definitely it's a fairly quirky beer. I think that's a good way to describe it. You can tell this one, it's actually aged quite nicely. It kind of strikes me as almost like a winter warmer, to be honest. I don't know if it was released as a winter warmer beer at some point. It would kind of make sense if they say the best before May, you could have released it in the May, then it's got 6 months or so to age in the bottle. Time for Christmas, I'm not sure about that. But yeah, it really comes across to me like some of these winter warmer beers. I remember the winter warmer from Malmgård and Panimo. That's that's an interesting one. That it really reminds me of that beer a little bit. But yeah, in terms of the barley wine style, very, very quirky, not like any other barley wine I can think of that I've had. And I would say this one's very hard to place as to whether it's an English barley wine or an American barley wine. But yeah, let's try and break down the flavour of this one then. So straight away with this beer, as soon as you take it in, it's a big oily, malty thing, like I say. It comes across, I mean, the sort of vibe that you get from this beer is almost like some kind of homebrew. It actually has an almost kind of homebrewed vibe to it, this one. So straight away with this beer, you get a kind of bready quality just blanketing the kind of middle of the palate there. It's a sort of brown bready, kind of bread crusty type quality that's there. It's a bit like a hedgehog roll. Don't know if the Finns and Swedes and stuff would get that reference, but in Scotland we always have these kind of hedgehog rolls, like a fresh bread type thing. It's really kind of like that, rather than the loaf baked bread, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's really got that bready base that the beer has actually suits it very nicely. But yeah, the kind of bready base, if you like, is great. Lovely big oily characters to the beer. In the very centre of your palate, if we talk about the middle third of your tongue, that's where the complexity to this beer is. But yeah, you've got that kind of brown, you've got that sort of smooth brown bready base there, and bread crust, that forms the backbone of the beer. If you go towards the back third of your tongue, you can feel it just kind of thickening up a little bit. You will get one or two wee grainy notes on the back of the palate there, but that big oily caramel quality just kind of sort of pushes it back down a little bit. But in the middle of your palate, that's where you're getting most of the complexity with this one. So that kind of brown bready quality. In the middle of your tongue, you've almost got like this little island that sits there, and then you've got the different layers of stuff that's kind of going on top of that. So at the bottom, you've got the lovely kind of sweet caramel, almost like a kind of stewed caramel, if that makes sense. It does have a wee bit of a kind of toasty edge to it, and that comes out further into the aftertaste that you go, but mainly it's a big oily kind of sweet thing. If you kind of go on top of that, you get a wee bit of a sort of Werther's Originally type quality to the beer, and as you move just over to the very, very edge of the island, that sort of island in the middle of your tongue, if you like, then it's a little bit more sort of biscuity, and it's got a little bit of that McVitie's digestive kind of vibe to it, which is interesting. And all of that is sitting on top of that very smooth bready base that this beer has. So yeah, there's maybe one or two very slight kind of woody undertones to the beer. If you go to the front corners of your palate and then just kind of move diagonally back a little bit, you will get a few sort of woody undertones sitting on there, mixed in with the kind of mixed in with the kind of bready base that the beer has. That's kind of interesting. But yeah, the way the orange comes out in this is really interesting. I do like how that goes together. But the malt base, I think, on this one is pretty straight up bread. Then you've got that kind of island in the middle, the kind of smooth, sweet caramel, slightly toasted, then the Werther's Originally notes on top of that, wee bit of biscuit around the edge of that kind of island, then a few kind of woody undertones. I think that sums up the middle of the palate fairly well on this one. And it actually has a very smooth transition between the middle third of your palate and the front third of your tongue. It's nice how it kind of goes together. Because the fruits are very oily in this one, and I like that about it. But yeah, let's try and move on to that hoppy side of things then. So the back corners of the palate, yeah, you get a little bit of earthiness there. As you move kind of further forward along the sides of the palate, it's a little bit, you do get a wee bit of the earthiness, that earthiness does spread forward a little bit, but it kind of quickly evolves to be a little bit more kind of floral. You do get a little bit of floral quality on the front corners of the palate, then round the very front curve of the tongue you can just feel a little bit of kind of grassy quality in there, but around that edge of the tongue you are going to notice the orange peel. The orangey flavours really come out around the kind of edge of the tongue there, and that's one thing that you always get when you add fruit into the beers. It always suppresses a little bit of the green side of the hops. But the thing with the barley wine, of course, especially, and I think this one does have a considerable bit of age on it, maybe at least 18 months, I think, just kind of going by how sort of just how the brown sugars are coming out, very oily and everything like that. This one, especially when you've got the hops dropping out of it, when it gets to this age, the fruitiness around the edge of the palate really shines a little bit more. So the orange peel flavours are really kind of sitting there around the very kind of edge of the tongue. Behind the front curve of the palate, though, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where the fruity esters just roll out of the hops. So yeah, let's look at that side of it now. So yeah, the fruity side of this beer, it really is actually quite juicy in some way. There's a wee teeny bit of almost sharpness to it. It's not oxidation though, don't need to worry about that. But yeah, I do think that with this beer, I think there's more than just Nelson Sauvin in this one. I think there might be a little touch of Amarillo, but the Nelson Sauvin comes across in a really interesting way. You've got a bit of that kind of grapey quality. It's almost a bit gooseberry like as well, in fairness. It's got a bit of that kind of white grapey, green grapey gooseberry type quality coming out of it. You can feel that at the front of your palate, but it kind of actually, the front third of your tongue, the Nelson Sauvin almost spreads about halfway back across that front third of your tongue, and that's really interesting. But there's a few other kind of flavours just sitting in the fruity side of the beer as well. It's definitely got a bit of a more kind of sultana and kind of almost like a slightly figgy quality to it as well, which is interesting. Well, maybe not figs, maybe like a kind of datey type quality actually. Yeah, there's a sort of kind of almost datey, maybe even slightly. What is that? It's not. It's quite difficult to place actually. There is something else in there. I think, yeah, datey, almost apricot-y type flavours coming out of this beer a little bit. It's really interesting how that all kind of fits together. I like that about this beer. But yeah, the orangey, the oily orangey qualities from the orange peel are around the edge of the tongue. The Nelson Sauvin's giving you a little bit of that kind of white, white, green, grapey and slightly gooseberry flavour further towards the front of the palate. There's almost just a wee bit of a kind of citrusy edge to this one too, which is really nice. I like how this beer goes together. I do like how it fits together. It's very quirky and it does have a really kind of homebrew type vibe to it. This one, it's almost like to me it almost strikes me like a kind of homebrewer's barley wine, if you like an experiment. Strikes me as quite an experimental beer, which I think it was, in fairness. But yeah, I do like this one, but from what Riku tells me, the other barley wines that they've done are better than this one. And I think it's fair to say that this probably isn't the best beer that these guys have done. I think it's fair to say, I would say as well, that this one isn't the best one I've had from them. I think the Sinti probably is my favourite one that I've had so far, and you know, that's the thing, is that these guys try quirky stuff. Sometimes it works better than others, and the Sinti I think does just work a little bit better than this one. Nothing wrong with that though. To try a barley wine with Nelson Sauvin and orange peel, it's an experiment, and it's worked to a fair degree, but it hasn't worked quite as well as the Sinti. I think that's a good way to that's a good way to kind of summarise that actually. But it is a nice beer, this one. It's worth trying just to enjoy. But this really strikes me as a little bit of a sort of winter warmer, if you like. But going by the flavour in this, it does have a little bit of that kind of slightly medicinally phenolic, cough syrupy type thing on the fruity side. So maybe this one does fit into the English barley wine category just a little bit more in that sense, rather than the American one. But I like how it goes together. It does get a thumbs up from me. You know, if you get the chance to try this, have a go at it, because it is something that is quite quirky. In terms of the mouthfeel then, it's definitely a full-bodied beer. Yeah, carbonation's pretty smooth on this one. Lovely big oily mouthfeel to it. I would say that this is one that kind of grows on me the more that I drink of it. It does get a little bit more kind of orangey, if you like. The orange, you'll notice when you take this beer in, just behind the front of your palate, the orange actually comes across quite sharp and quite pungently. Not tart, I should say, but it does have quite a pungent orange when you take a sip of this beer, which is nice. But yeah, in terms of hoppy bitterness and stuff, I think you've maybe got about 20-ish IBUs in this, but it will depend on what age you drink this beer at. Obviously the hops will be more prominent the earlier you drink the beer. But at the moment I think we're talking about 20 IBUs. The malt base is lovely and big and oily in this one, which is very, very nice, and you've got a lot of oily fruit out of this one too. So a lovely take on the barley wine style, I think, but definitely quite quirky in that sense. But it does strike me as quite a sort of homebrewed vibe, if you like. It's a big oily sort of winter warmer type beer, this one. I think that's probably the best time to drink this, is as a sort of winter warmer kind of beer actually. But yeah, thumbs up to Sonnisari for trying something a little bit different. As I say, I don't think this one works quite as well as some of the other beers that I've had, and Riku tells me as well that this one isn't one of the best beers that you're going to find from them. But I've really enjoyed trying it. I thought it's a really interesting experiment. Barley wine with Nelson Sauvin in it and a bit of orange peel. It's worked fairly well, but as I say, I think not quite as well as some of the other ones that I've had from these guys. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This one was the orange Nelson Sauvin, a 10.2% barley wine with orange peel added to it, with Nelson Sauvin hops from New Zealand, from Sonnisaari Panimo in Oulu on the northwest coast of Finland. Thank you again to Riku for sorting this beer out and getting it to me, and I hope you guys continue to enjoy the Finnish mini-series. Like I said, you will see 2 other reviews from Sonnisari over the next little while, and we've got a few other higher alcohol beers to take a look at as well. Thank you again for watching my reviews, and I will catch you guys very soon. Slàinte, skål, kipis, and thank you again to Riku. Cheers.